All right, now let's go ahead and open the folder we just created, and let's open this in Chrome. Oh, there we go. Well, it's nothing for now, which is exactly what we wanted because we've written nothing. As we write more things, they'll appear here on screen. So let me just put these side by side. This has the tendency to not work sometimes. Can y'all see both the screens, both the browser window and the coding window? All right, wonderful. Thank you for letting me know. All right, now that we've written the starting of our file, let's get straight into it. Let's get into more detail. And just a quick note, there's a lot of information coming. So if you get slightly overwhelmed, that's okay. You don't need to remember all of this. Just stay with me, walk with me, keep writing with me if you are coding along. All right, the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna open an HTML tag and close an HTML tag. This is a property of HTML tags that you must get intimately familiar with. They open and they close. The difference between an opening tag and a closing tag is this slash preceding the word right there. And everything that you will contain inside of the tag is what that tag is for. That doesn't make 100% sense. I realize that. So as we keep going forward, I think it'll make slightly more intuitive sense. But basically what this HTML tag is saying is that it's saying everything inside of this is the HTML that the browser has to go ahead and render. Those are the tags. All right, let's go to the next tag, head. Again, opening, closing. You'll also see me indenting along. Not necessary. HTML doesn't care, just good coding convention. All right, in the head tag, we declare metadata. Metadata is just data about data. It's everything that the website needs to know that will not be displayed on the screen, on the main screen, that is. So for example, one very important metadata is title. What will be the title of our page? Let's call it lecture 2. And as we do that and go ahead and reload here, you'll see right up here, lecture 2. Ooh, we're making changes. All right. Any questions before we jump straight into actually putting things on our web page? All right. In that case, let's get into it. The next tag that we have to get familiar with is the body tag. The body tag is the second most important tag in HTML, right after the HTML tag. The body tag says everything inside of this tag is our main display on the screen. So if I write hello world inside of our body tags, save it and reload the page, lo and behold, you'll see hello world right there. Right, so we're done, I guess. We have just made things appear on screen, but the unfortunate thing about HTML is that you don't want them to appear simply. You want them to appear in certain ways, in certain designs. So now we're gonna embellish this even further by describing the kind of things we're gonna put on screen. Well, the first thing that you wanna start putting on screen is a header, which we'll use H1 to H6 to define. So H1 is the heading 1 tag. Now if I put hello world in H1, you'll see a massive difference. Look at that, it's bigger. So headings on a general document are bigger. So a heading in a HTML page is also bigger. And they grow smaller from H1 all the way to H6. I'll do just one more. All right, there we go. Any questions?
Is there something we can use to like comment in our code?
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent question. Right. So y'all may be familiar with the Python style of commenting, maybe the Java style of commenting. the way to comment in HTML code is extremely terrible. It's opening this curly or this triangular parentheses, exclamation point, dash dash. And then this is a comment and dash dash closing. Yeah. All right. If you are in a programming text editor, just as an FYI, you can just use command and the slash symbol for it to just throw a comment symbol in there. But if that's not working for you, that's completely all right as well. You can go in and write that as well. All right. That's a comment. Those are some headings. I will not purchase. All right, let's keep going. Oh, we've written some headers. Now we got to write something about the headers. We got to write paragraphs. And pretty intuitively, I think, there's a P tag, which is a paragraph tag. And once we write that, you'll notice that it is much smaller. It's also of a lighter weight in the text itself. And you'll notice that as you create two paragraphs, it creates an automatic gap between them that would not exist if you were to just add some enters there. Anything inside of a paragraph is not what you see is what you get. It is straight line. So I could put 15 enters in there and it wouldn't change a thing. All right, any questions?
Yeah, sorry, quickly, how did you like open it in Chrome one more time?
Oh, excellent question. So when you create a folder with your HTML page, you should have this document right here. Often it just opens it for you in a browser by default. Otherwise, you can right-click it and open it in some browser of your choice. You can open it in Safari, that's another one I have, or Chrome, and then it should open it like so for you.
Okay, got it.
Was that a question? All right, excellent. Yes, Leo, go for it.
Oh, I just have a question about like how do I insert like multiple new line between two paragraphs?
Oh, multiple new lines between two paragraphs. What an excellent question. And I have to regretfully inform you that I have to table that question for a second, and we will come back to it. All right. Let's do one more tag. This is the A tag, which is commonly called the anchor tag. And this is the tag that made the World Wide Web itself. All right. This is the tag that allows you to go ahead and link whatever you want. All right, reload, and you'll see there you go. Hopefully now when I click this, uh-oh, don't forget your HTTPS, kids. There we go. Now, when I click this, aha. So that's an anchor tag for you. The idea behind anchor tag is what basically creates a World Wide Web, connects web pages to each other, and allows you to connect different pages of your own website to each other as well. Before I entertain any questions on this, there's one other concept I'd like to introduce with these anchor tags. And that is that you could, ooh, that's bad formatting. There we go. That's better. You could plop an anchor tag inside of a paragraph tag, and that shouldn't create any sort of problem. That's because tags are nested very intuitively, as you can notice here. This paragraph tag contains the A tag inside of it. And that makes complete sense, right? A link can be inside of a paragraph. So a link tag can be inside of a paragraph tag. All right, questions? Let me just see if aha. That's better, isn't it? All right. Let's just keep going on this tag journey. Let's do one more tag. Well, what is a website without clickable things? Am I right? Let's make a clickable thing. Let's make a button. There we go. Right now, this button, when you click it, does essentially nothing. But the job of HTML is not to make it do anything. When you click it and you expect to do something, that's responsiveness. And responsiveness is an extremely JavaScript property. So now you maybe kind of start to see how these things connect to each other, where you create a button in HTML, but you add the responsiveness to that specific button in JavaScript. All right. Let's just keep going. Let's add one more tag. This website looks kind of bland. Let's add some spice to it. Oh, cannot type today. Let's add an image tag to it. An image tag with an src. Oh, that's a big picture, but here we have the Beatles. Oh, excellent question in the chat that I'll address at this very moment. It does have a default font. The default font is Times New Roman, I believe. And it has a default font size for everything as well. Let's take a really, really quick sidebar and talk about how to examine the size of whatever is on your screen when you don't know it. Well, you can go ahead and right-click something, and it'll give you this option to inspect it. When you click inspect, it should open up this, ooh, that's not, there we go. It should open up this kind of sidebar on the side that allows you to look at your HTML, look at your CSS, and generally look around, you know? So let's inspect our H1 tag right here. There we go. H1 tags are Times New Roman, 32 pixels in size. They got some margins, which you don't need to worry about yet. They have a color. That's the hex code of pure black. They got some margins. Don't worry about that either. And there's a few notes about accessibility, which we'll talk about in a very quick second. But there you go. If you want to go ahead and do the same thing to, say, the button, you could go ahead and do that. It'll let you know more information as well. Standard default buttons are of the font Arial. I did not know that. They have background color, they have padding, they have their own text color as well, and so on and so on and so forth. All right. That's a really quick enough way to examine your web page. And if you don't know what a default for an HTML, just look it up. You don't need to memorize it at all. All right. Back to our regularly scheduled program. Now, if your internet is as poor as mine often is, images don't load pretty quick for you, or sometimes they don't load at all. And then sometimes you're just staring at a blank chunk of the screen, or maybe this link is broken. I wrote the wrong link, and now it's just this tiny icon, which is very annoying for any viewer. So what you want to do more often than not, and pretty much always, is give some alternate text to that image. What this does is that when the image doesn't load, it writes the text next to it so that there can still be some semblance of context, even when your images don't load, or more especially, I think, if people who are not viewing your web page, but instead maybe listening to it, can also keep along. They don't have to get lost in the flurry of images that we throw up on screen. All right, any questions?
Would that text still show if the image did load?
Let's find out. Ooh. This, let's see, let's look at all four corners. Doesn't seem so, so no. All right, any other questions? All right, I've commented out the image for being entirely too big and being kind of annoying in the screen, but just keep that in mind. All right. Ooh, let's continue our journey through tags and tags and tags and tags. We'll do a few more. Let's do lists. That's an important part of writing a document, and your web page is, well, secretly a document. So let's figure out how to make lists. Let's start with a list item. An li tag defines a list item. Let's say cucumbers. What I'm trying to make here is, let's make a heading for it. Ooh, this is my groceries. There you go, cucumbers. So now you have cucumbers down there, but what you want to do is wrap it in an OL tag, which tells you that every list item inside of these tags is part of an unordered UL tag, part of an unordered list. There you go, and you'll see the indent happen as we do that. Let me try to remove these real quick and I'll be able to show you. So as you can see, keep an eye on the left half of the screen for just a second, and we'll put those tags back in and reload, and boom. That indent is built in how these UL tags work. They give you some very, very nice dimension as you keep writing your groceries. Let's add some other things. I don't even know what I can get for groceries right now. Let's say ramen. And one more thing, I guess, popcorn. You can see I did not eat healthy. All right, there we go. So that's an unordered list. A very normal question, a very intuitive, I guess, follow-up question would be, is an ordered list? And let's find out. Instead of UL, let's write OL. And it's still a list item, so LI remains. Reload, it's instead changed to 1, 2, and 3. Now, personally, I think this is very cool because I don't have to go in and number things. If I have to change numbers, I don't have to go in and mess with them. I really like this kind of format where you can just declare a list item and it'll number them for you. All right, any questions? All right then. In that case, deep breath. We're just about halfway through. I know that for people who may be unfamiliar with HTML, this is a bit of a lot. So stay with me, and please keep asking questions if any come up. All right. We'll do, let's say, one more slightly complex tag. This is the form tag. And each form tag, well, let's start simply. Let's just try to render the form tag. Nothing, because we didn't say anything. This is my form. Ooh, let's try to do that again. As you can see, pretty normal. But inside of a form tag, we can put an input tag that takes some sort of input, give input. All right. Now it is not, again, responsive. Giving input will do nothing, but this is a building block. You can put it in there and then put responsiveness in with JavaScript. All right, let's go ahead and do one more thing. When you're defining an input tag, you want to define the type of the input tag as well. One type is text, which is the default, but there can be other types as well. Notably, there can be a submit type input, which interestingly, there we go. Doesn't take any arguments within it, but automatically puts a submit inside of the button. And there's a lot of very cool inbuilt things in HTML that you may research and look about. We're just doing the very core basics right now. All right, questions? All right, for good measure, let's throw one more tag in there, the BR tag. And as you can see, let's see that again in action. Look at this line right here. This is paragraph, this is Google. And when you put the BR tag in there, whoa, goes down. That is a break line. It is basically your enter within a paragraph. All right. Questions? All right. As always, comment, available, interrupt me, all that is open. Let's see. All right. Let's do 2 more tags. The first one is something that will kind of make this more orderly. Because right now, everything in the body tag is just kind of in there. You know, everything's just one after the other, after the other, after the other. Here's some H1 tags, here's a P tag, here's button tags. But what we didn't notice before is that you can nest tags. You can put an A tag instead of a P tag, and you can put probably a P tag instead of an H1 tag. I'd highly recommend experimenting with all of that. And we have this grocery section right here, and we have this form section right here. And you can see there's a lot of things that have their own isolated area instead of a web page. We probably want to kind of enforce that within HTML itself. And the way to do that is with something known as divs. The word div, as some of you may surmise, is from division. You want to create divisions in your web page. So we're going to go ahead and do that. A div tag by itself doesn't really have any properties. If I write div tag in and reload the page, nothing happens. If I take a div tag and put it around all the headers that we have had here, nothing happens. A div tag is not making any visible change to your web page, but it is important for more clearly categorizing your web page so that, say, CSS or JavaScript can more easily traverse through and find the thing that they are looking for to either embellish, make more pretty, or make more interactive, depending on which one you're using at that given moment. All right, let's go ahead and make more div tags. Oh, tap that. You know, why not? Let's just take the button and put it inside of this div tag as well. Let's put a div tag around our groceries. And finally, let's put a div tag around our form. Oh my God. Div tag around our forms. There we go. All right. As you can see, it does lend some amount of clarity to the web page and order to the web page. It makes for much easier development when you're writing HTML, and it does make things easier down the line when you're doing CSS and JavaScript. So I won't belabor that point anymore. There's also one final thing, I guess. There's also something known as the span tag. The span tag is for, it's basically like the div tag, but thinner. The div tag is for big chunky categories. The span tag is for things you may want to do inside of another line. For example, if you were to go ahead and put a div tag around the BR and the A tag right here, something pretty scary would happen. Look at that. Look at how much space just got created. You could remove the BR tag and the space would still be massive. That's because the div tag itself comes with a little bit of padding around it. It has a little bit of space inbuilt. When you put a div tag around something, that space comes with it. So sometimes when you want to categorize something, but you don't want the space to come with it, you use the span tag. And as you can see on the web page, Google went right back up to the previous line. All right, questions?
Could you scroll down a little bit? I just missed something that you mentioned previously. Yeah.
Absolutely. There you go.
Okay. Wait, so div cannot go over like the body or something, right? It's like inside the body.
Yes, div is another tag that remains inside of the body. You can imagine as the body tag is basically the entire screen, and divs as like your imaginary divisions of the screen.
Wait, so HTML is not for entire screen, only like the body is for entire screen.
It's a little bit confusing, right? So the HTML is the entirety of the web page. That means this title right here, and some metadata that we'll just add in a very quick second, and everything in this white box right here. So the HTML is both of those things. The head tag is this thing and any other data that you may have embedded inside of this thing. And the body tag is this white square.
Oh. Okay, got it. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yes.
All right, any other questions? as I'll kind of take a moment to absorb all of that, because I did throw a lot of stuff at you all at once, we're going to go on a tiny bit of an exploratory journey here. Let's search for web development at Berkeley and see what Google spits out. And we're going to go at Web at Berkeley, the web page for web development at Berkeley as well. All right. Let's just keep this description in mind, will you? Web development at Berkeley aims to increase awareness of web development education technologies in the Berkeley community, centralizing the blah, 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 blah. This is very important. We'll have to keep an eye on this, because when we go to our web page, where is it? Feel free to go on the web page yourself and look for it. Let me know if you find it. Let's see what we offer, I guess. Oh, we are at what we offer. Home. No, home's this one. To the best of my knowledge, this description right here does not exist on the web page. You cannot find it in here anywhere. So where did it come from? It had to come from the web page, or Google made it up, which seems a lot more tricky and confusing. So it had to be somewhere in the files that we were creating. And indeed it was. That thing that Google displays right here, this is known as metadata. It's the information that you embed within your web page that is not immediately displayed on the web page, like so, but instead used by robots that may be crawling the internet, or other websites kind of pulling your service and displaying it somewhere, or any other way that your website may be interacted with that is not directly going to it. So how do you embed this metadata into your website? You do it in the head tag. And the idea of the head tag was, as we mentioned a little bit before, don't worry if you didn't catch it, that every website has some metadata. It's the data that doesn't go in the body. It's the data not in this white square right here. So we're going to go ahead and put, very intuitively, a meta tag in there. Meta type is content. We're going to let it know what content we're containing. We're going to add a description that is, this is a practice site. And this is, again, a tag that does not close. All right, let's go ahead and reload that. Now, the tricky thing about metadata is that you'll never see it anywhere. It's a metadata. So unless you're a robot or another website pulling this website in some fashion that analyzes metadata, it's not visible to you. It's not for human eyes. So as you're developing, you'll never see it. But this is very important for search engine optimization, as well as making your website more accessible across the internet. All right, questions?
When you inspect, will you be able to find the metadata?
Let's look for it. All right, here we go. We have our head right here. Yeah, there you go. You can see it in the head. Maybe if we try to inspect the web development at Berkeley site, we'll find that metadata as well. Let's look for it. All right, here we go. Ooh, this is exciting. I never tried this before. Ooh, lots of different metadata. There we go. Let's try to, yeah, there we go. Web development Berkeley aims to increase awareness of web development education technologies and blah, 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 blah. Yes, it is there. So it is in your website. It's just not visible on the web page. All right. Great question. Thank you for asking. Any other questions? Yeah.
Yeah, so if we don't specify this description and like whatever like metadata, is it auto-generated by Google?
Great
Or does it
question.
default to
So
something?
what Google typically does is that it typically just doesn't crawl websites without other links to it. And if you have other links to it, you typically have metadata. But imagine you forced Google's bots to come to your website and crawl it when you didn't have any metadata. What Google would do is that it would look at your website, read all the HTML in your website, find the biggest heading that you have, and then find the like paragraph under it, and then make that your description. It's a little bit more complicated than that because it is bot, but it goes through your website and finds what it imagines to be the best description.
Wait, so it's determined by the robot, or they just take the first paragraph they see? Or
I have no idea. I've seen Google do both, take the most intuitive paragraph sometimes, and sometimes just take the first paragraph. Who knows what Google technology is doing? Right. Any other questions? All right. In that case, another deep breath because we're done with every tag we're going to introduce today. I promise, no more tags thrown in your face. This is all you need to know to make a pretty solid website. If this was the 1990s, you're done. You have your personal website right there. Unfortunately, it is not the 1990s. So it's going to take another 6 or so classes before we can get any semblance of a good personal website up there. But for now, let's just stick with HTML. And let's talk about something a little bit more specific. Let's talk about classes. Not the Python style of classes. Oh no, we're not here to create a nightmare. The HTML style of classes. The idea behind classes is that, sure, you can categorize things in divisions, but there may be some things common in various different divisions. For example, let's just change the text, right? Let's put my name everywhere. I enjoy doing that. Let's put it here. And finally, let's put it here. Now, I want some way to go through this website and find everywhere where my name is and do something to those specific things. One way to do it through JavaScript is to literally go through everything in the website, check everything to find if there's a name, and then do it, which is very tedious and also very slow. You can only imagine a website that, say, is as big as Google. You're trying to find one keyword, just looking and looking and looking. It's never ending. You probably don't want that. So the way that this is resolved is through the idea of classes. And by classes, I mean the class attribute. You can tell a tag that it belongs to a class. Let's call that class AMKS. Let's do it here as well. Let's do it one last one here. Now, this is another one of those things where you won't see any physical change on the web page. Well, what this allows you to do is go in your JavaScript and say, all right, give me every single instance of an element where the class is AMKS, and it immediately can go through it, look at all the classes. Well, okay, this one, this one, this one. Here's everything that's tagged AMKS at the class AMKS. Do whatever you want with it. And then I can change the text color to blue or whatever I want to do. So that's the power of classes. It allows you to categorize various different things to be different colors or something similar like that. Questions? All right, let's do one more thing. Let's put another tag here. Let's say about me. This is another H1 tag. Right, so now we have two H1 tags on the place. Let's say I want to only change the color of the hello world H1 tag and not the about me H1 tag. You could use a class for that. If I want to say color blue, you could give it the class blue. But the problem that creates is that someone can go in and put something else as class blue, and now the one thing that you want to make stand out on the page, the heading, doesn't remain that way. There's something else that can also be made blue, which is not okay. So sometimes you want to tag something as unique. You want to say that this is the only instance of this blue on the web page. And the way you do that is with an ID instead of a class. So classes and IDs are a little bit like mutually exclusive almost, where a class groups a bunch of different elements together, and an ID makes one element stand completely apart. What ID does is that it basically allows JavaScript to say, all right, give me the one thing with the blue tag. And JavaScript's like, okay, here you go. And then you can do whatever you want with it. All right, questions?
So
Can
our
something-
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, thanks. I was just gonna ask, can something have multiple classes, like be under multiple class types?
Absolutely. Excellent question. And the way to do that is to add a space and add another class to it, like just like so. And now it is under the class AMKS and under the class name. All right, I believe there was another question.
Yeah, so I was wondering, so two sort of like tags or elements can't have the same ID. Can they have the same ID?
Two
Yeah.
tags or elements cannot have the same ID.
Okay.
It will error if you do so. An ID is completely unique across a single web page. So if this is blue, nothing else can be blue.
Okay,
One important note, a thing can have a class tag and an ID tag. That's not a problem, because you're saying this is the only instance of the name main. Main also happens to be an AMKS and a name. That's confusing terminology, but both can exist simultaneously.
Cool, thanks.
All right, questions? All right then. Well, TLDR. Let's go back to the big picture, because we've talked a lot of details. We've talked a lot of tags. We've talked about a dozen or so tags. Ooh, that was a lot. In TLDR, you don't need to remember all of this. If you forgot a tag, if you don't remember how lists work again, that's okay. All of that is extremely lookupable. You can go ahead and look it up on Google, and you'll find an excellent web page describing exactly how to use them. What I want you to take away from this lecture is the big picture, which is that HTML is really just some aggressive categorizing. It's going ahead and saying, okay, here's my body. Inside of a body is a div. Inside of a div is a paragraph. Inside of a paragraph is a link. Inside of a link is a picture. Inside of a picture is something else. And it just keeps going and going and going deeper and deeper and deeper. And the more cleanly you would categorize things in your web page, the more scalable your project will be, because you don't run into the problem of being like, oh my God, now I have to add this thing and I'm getting confused about where things are, because everything is condensed down to its own div, or own span or own separate category, not necessarily a div. The second big thing that I want you to take away is that HTML is basically making trees. This one's a little bit more challenging to see on first go, so just stay with me here. The idea behind HTML is that there's a big node at the top, which is the HTML node, and then there's the body node and the head node. And in the body node, you create a bunch of other div nodes. Inside of div nodes, you create heading nodes or paragraph nodes or at nodes, or inside of those nodes, you create more things. So as you can see, it's a very flowing down tree-like structure. And why I invoke that cursed imagery of trees, everyone hates trees in CS, but the reason I'm invoking that cursed imagery is because that is extremely by design. It is extremely by design that web pages are built to flow from the top downwards. It is how you would traverse a web page. It is how you would create different operations on it. And it is how you would be able to do various things with it if you were to know it was a tree. Stating that again, because this is probably the hardest thing you will take away from this lecture. There's the big HTML node on the top that we created right here. If you can ignore closing tags for a second, just focus on the opening tags, right? The HTML node. Inside of the HTML node, we created a head node and a body node. You can imagine that being two other nodes out of the HTML node. Inside of the head node, we created a title node and a meta node. Two other nodes inside of the head node. Inside of the body node, we created this div node, and we created this div node. And inside of this div node, we created this H1 node and this H2 node and this H3 node. And inside of this div node, we created this paragraph node, in which we created this span node, in which we created this at node. So what seems to be like lists inside of lists inside of lists can also be viewed as trees having nodes inside of nodes inside of nodes. All right. Questions on that? All right. In that case, homework 1 is due today. Please do submit it. Homework 2 will be released today and is due on Friday. Also take a look at that. I believe that is the HTML homework. So hopefully this should be a good preparation for that. I will be posting this HTML file for you to get started on, have fun with, all those good things. All right. I'll be staying back for a while for any questions that you may have, but otherwise this lecture is at an end. Thank you for coming. Really excited to see all of you. Hopefully I'll see a lot more of you throughout this semester. Yeah, have a good day. Have a good night. All right, see you guys.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Quick question: are lectures like
Absolutely.
on the calendar? It says till 9:30. Are they an hour or like an hour and a half long? Or does it,
They
like,
are
vary?
typically an hour and a half long.
Okay.
We just blew through a lot of stuff.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
I just have a question about the deep node you just mentioned. What's that again? Could you explain again? I kind of confused about when you talk about the node stuff and the deep node.
All right. Could you kind of slightly explain to me what exactly about it being a deep node is confusing?
Oh, I just don't know what that is. What you mentioned, what you talk about. Yeah.
All right. Give me 1 second.
I tried to search on Google, but I'm still, yeah.
No
Maybe
worries. No worries. It's terminology that is hard to find with simply HTML. It's a very CSS terminal or very JavaScript terminology. So let me try to explain it in a slightly different way. The way I like to think about the entire structure of an HTML file is kind of like a tree, like a binary tree or a tree in CS, where you have like a main thing at the top, which is the HTML, and then you have two things that are inside of that HTML, which is the head and the body, and you have two things inside of the head, which is the title and the meta tag, and then you have many things inside of the body tag, which are all of these div tags, and you have things inside of the div tag, and so on and so forth. So my idea of a deep node is not that there's anything uniquely deep about that node, but rather that it can go as deep as you want it to. Things can be inside of things, can be inside of things, can be inside of things, down to whatever depth you want.
Okay, got it. So it's just like representing the hierarchical stuff.
Yes, exactly. Let me just go for it.